So guys, the wait is finally over. The Washington Commanders have officially kicked off training camp, and as expected, everyone came into day one looking for answers. Fans wanted to see what David Blue's new offense would actually look like, how Durante Jones's defense would operate, and which players would start separating themselves from the rest of the roster. There were also a few injury updates that immediately caught everyone's attention, making the first practice even more interesting. But once the action got underway, one unexpected storyline quickly stole the spotlight. It wasn't the player most people were talking about over the summer, yet by the end of practice, that was the name generating the biggest buzz around the team. In fact, after what happened on day one, there's a very real chance the Commanders may have uncovered something much bigger than anyone expected heading into training camp. So, let me break down everything that stood out from the Commanders' first practice and why this surprise could end up being one of the biggest storylines to watch moving forward. What's up, Commanders Nation? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Commanders. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So, at the press conference held on the first day of training camp, Dan Quinn and GM Adam Peters sat down with reporters, and one question really stood out. A reporter asked Adam Peters a pretty clever question. He didn't even say Aiyuk's name. He just asked in a general sense how much a player's social media activity factors into the evaluation process. And everybody in that room knew exactly who he was talking about. Peters and Quinn both had a laugh about it, but then Peters answered and said, "It's not usually a huge part of it," and he really put some emphasis on that word usually. You know exactly what that means, right? That's about as close to a confirmation as you're going to get that Brandon Aiyuk's social media activity has absolutely played a role in how this front office is approaching whether or not to bring him in this season. So, if you're Brandon Aiyuk, you might want to think twice before posting again, because right now it kind of feels like you're watching this whole thing play out from the outside looking in. But once the press conference wrapped up, the attention shifted to something a little more straightforward, the injury report, and there were a handful of updates that came out of it worth talking about. Punter Tressway was added to the injury report with a pectoral issue. Now, it's not considered serious, but the team is being smart and playing it safe with him, which is why they brought in veteran punter Matt Hack to handle all the punting reps at camp while Way works his way back. On top of that, second-year linebacker Kane Medrano is dealing with a minor injury too, but nothing that should keep him out for long. But the real story, the one that had everybody a little nervous, was Nick Allegretti leaving practice and not returning. Remember, Allegretti was the guy penciled in as the starting center this year, the guy this whole offensive line was supposed to be built around after they moved on from the old starter this offseason. He was working through O-line drills when he walked off with a member of the training staff, and he just never came back out. We don't have an official update yet. We'll get more from Dan Quinn when he talks to the media, but with him out, Julian Good-Jones stepped in and finished the day as the first-team center, ahead of rookie Matt Golban even. Now, here's why this matters so much. This offensive line was supposed to be one of the strengths of this team, with continuity coming back at tackle and guard. Center was really the only question mark, and Allegretti was the answer to that question. If he ends up missing real time here, that's a problem for this offensive line, and it's a problem for this offense as a whole, especially with a new scheme trying to get installed. So, that's definitely something we need to keep a very close eye on over the next few days, and this might be the single biggest thing to watch heading into tomorrow's practice. Okay, now let's get into what else happened on the field, because this is where things get interesting. Starting with the offense, it's already really clear that David Blue wants to run a very balanced attack in terms of shotgun versus under center looks. I'd say it was close to 50-50 today, which is a little surprising for this point in camp. Most teams are leaning heavy into shotgun work early on since the pads aren't on yet. You want to get your perimeter stuff installed first, but that wasn't the case here. Washington was running a lot of under center stuff, tons of pre-snap motion, the kind of stuff you see out of Kyle Shanahan's offense, Sean McVay's offense, Ben Johnson's offense. And we've talked about this all offseason. This is the identity Washington wants heading into the next chapter of Jayden Daniels' career, and it was on full display today. Honestly, if this offense can really commit to that motion-heavy, play-action-based identity, it opens up so much for Daniels as a passer. It creates easier reads, it forces defenses to declare their coverage earlier, and it takes advantage of exactly the kind of processing speed Daniels has shown he's capable of. So, seeing it show up this early in camp, even without pads, that's a really encouraging sign for where this offense is headed. But the real star of the show offensively, the guy who stole the spotlight from everybody, was rookie receiver Antonio Williams out of Clemson. Now, Williams has always had a reputation as a technician, a really polished route runner out of the slot, but today he looked like he belonged out there already. He was creating real separation all day. He had linebackers running in circles trying to cover him, and the way he was moving out there, it just looks like he's already a pro. I mean, with the kind of opportunity he's about to get in this offense, you almost have to put him in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year already. There just aren't many rookies walking into a role with this much upside on day one. Now, it wasn't just Williams either. Treylon Burks and Dyami Brown both had some really nice moments too, both of them coming down with toe-tap touchdown catches in the back of the end zone. Burks, the former first-round pick, he's got that big body catch radius, and he's flashed at times during his career, including last season here in Washington, so hopefully this is the start of him taking that next step. And Diami Brown, look, we already know he's got a strong connection with Jaden Daniels. We saw that during the playoff run a couple years back, so it's great seeing that chemistry building right back up. Honestly, if the Commanders don't end up bringing in another veteran receiver like a Stephon Diggs this offseason, I think the picture becomes pretty clear. Terry McLaurin is obviously your number one. Antonio Williams looks like your number two working out of the slot. And then it's probably going to come down to matchups and packages for who rounds out that third receiver spot between Burks and Brown. Maybe Luke McCaffrey finds his way into that mix too. And you could see Jalen Lang get some deep shot opportunities depending on the situation. Nobody has fully locked down that third spot yet, but it's only day one, so we'll see how the rest of the week shakes out. Now let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball because Durante Jones made it very clear what kind of identity he wants this defense to have. From what I saw, and from what other reporters covering the team noticed too, there were more blitz packages called today than what we saw during the entire training camp last year under Joe Wood Jr. I mean, Durante Jones wants to get after the quarterback, and it's obvious this is going to be one of the most aggressive, blitz-heavy defenses in the whole league this season. And that tracks everything we heard about him coming into this job. He's a first-time play caller, sure, but he's got that background as a defensive coordinator, and everything about his coaching style points toward pressure, toward disguise, toward making the quarterback uncomfortable before the ball is even snapped. It's a completely different vibe from what we saw under Joe Witt Jr., and this defense needed a jolt like that after the way things went last season. And here's what really has me encouraged about this defense. Last year, one of the biggest issues was a lack of speed at inside linebackers. Bobby Wagner just wasn't fast enough anymore, and even Frankie Louvu had some tough coverage reps last year. But now you've got guys like Leo Chenal and Sonny Styles out there, and it completely changes how this defense can operate in those middle zones. When they're playing zone coverage, they're not getting exposed the way they were a season ago, and these guys have the athleticism to actually stick with tight ends and running backs on a weekly basis. And the secondary looked really sharp out there too, which is huge news considering how blitz-heavy this defense is going to be. You need guys who can hold up on an island when you're sending extra rushers, and even though there were a couple of dropped interceptions, the overall coverage really made Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, and the rest of the quarterbacks work hard to find open targets during team periods. That's great news for Mike Sainristil, great news for Amick Robertson, and Rasul Douglas looks solid out there as well. So look, for a first practice with no pads on, that was about as exciting and intriguing as you could ask for. There's a lot of new energy in Washington this season, new coordinators on both sides of the ball, and already we're seeing storylines develop that could shape how this whole year plays out. Obviously, we're going to learn a lot more once the pads come on next week and things get more physical, but if day one is any indication, this is going to be a fun camp to follow. That's going to do it for this breakdown of Commanders training camp day one. Between the Allegretti scare, the Ayuk situation still lingering, and Antonio Williams looking like a star already, there's already a ton to unpack, and we're only one practice into this whole thing. If you enjoyed this, make sure you smash that subscribe button because we're bringing you daily updates, standouts, and injury news throughout the entire camp. Drop a comment and let me know who you think steps up as that third receiver, and I'll see you in the next one.